Don't you feel like it's been ages since you had a calm discussion with someone without them calling you silly or dishonest, mocking you for your ideas, or even trying to silence you? When did we lose the ability to say, hey, I don't agree, but I can understand why you think that? Don't you miss the days when you could disagree respectfully and that was it? In the history of philosophy, we've seen many such episodes, where a group sets itself up as the guardians of orthodoxy and persecutes the dissenter as a heretic. Pythagoras, according to some accounts, was attacked by an angry mob over political differences. Anaxagoras had to flee Athens, accused of impiety for claiming the moon was made of rock and the sun a burning ball of fire. Protagoras had to watch as his work was burned after someone heard him say he was unsure whether the gods existed. But perhaps the most famous example of this was Socrates, who was sentenced to death simply for practicing philosophy. It's true he stirred the pot a little, annoying the wrong people, but in the end he was nurturing critical thinking, especially in the youth, encouraging them to think by themselves and draw their own conclusion. Powerful people didn't like it and began discrediting him behind his back, with lies and half-truths, until they managed to take him to trial. They accused him, for example, of denying the gods, which he never did, and of corrupting the youth, a charge so vague and imprecise it could mean anything depending on what his accusers needed to mean. Sorry, you weren't supposed to see that. Socrates' case is especially dramatic because he wasn't just facing the 2 or 3 people who opposed him in court, but an entire invisible army of organized persecutors who, like spiders, had long been weaving their webs from the shadows of anonymity, so as to destroy the reputation of someone so inconvenient to their interests. And the same pattern has repeated throughout the history of philosophy. It's true there are many myths around this, but I assure you, for a medieval university professor, it was no joy to receive a summoning from ecclesiastical authority. It was a bit like getting audited today, but 100 times worse. It meant preparing for obsessive scrutiny, where every word you'd written would be examined under a magnifying glass by people often predisposed to find the worst possible interpretation of them, especially if you'd made many enemies over your career. And here you could trust no one, not even those who seemed friends. Anything, any conversation, even any comment in class could be used against you. In fact, quite often, it had already been decided beforehand whether someone was guilty or not, and the process was simply about finding an excuse to make it official. This was a constant in the Middle Ages, and every serious philosopher had to deal one way or another with accusations of heresy from their intellectual opponents. It happened to John Scatter's Eugena, who had several of his works condemned and was probably killed by his students for heresy. It happened to the genius of logic and rhetoric, Peter Abelard, who loved to ridicule his opponents with public debates. In 1121, 2 students of 2 professors who had been ridiculed by Abelard accused him of heresy to the Council of Soissons, and he had to go to defend himself, only to discover upon arrival that they had already convinced everyone he was guilty. Not even Thomas Aquinas was spared of this. Though he had already died, some theses associated with his thought ended up in the Paris condemnations of 1277. And let's not forget the tragic Giordano Bruno, who paid in flames with his life his challenge to dominant thought. Ugh. Well into modernity, the same thing continued to happen. After Galileo's condemnation in 1633, Descartes pulled one of his books from print and began writing more cautiously to avoid possible problems in the future. David Hume was repeatedly denied a chair because of his reservations about religion and his flirtation with atheism. Spinoza was expelled from his Jewish community for his revolutionary ideas, and his whole life he had to face persecution from those who attacked him without proof as an atheist and materialist, inventing about him all sorts of slanders. And it doesn't end there. Kant publishes in 1793 the text Religion Within the Bounds of Pure Reason. In this book, Kant defended freedom of thought and expression for intellectuals against the political religious censorship of the time, when anything touching religion, even tangentially, had to be reviewed by theologians who were hardly inclined to let a philosopher step on their turf. This causes huge controversy, and the king of Prussia himself has to order him directly and personally never to speak about religion ever again. Kant, by the way, clever as a fox, wrote back promising, as a loyal subject of His Majesty, never to speak on these matters again. He knew firsthand, as he had been told, that the king, in frail health, had little time left in this world, and of course, once the emperor died, Kant stopped being his loyal subject and the promise was no longer binding. Clever fellow, right? One might think we should have learned something from all this, that thanks to this history we would now value freedom of thought more. But the same exclusive sectarian tribalism survives in other forms. We won't burn anyone at the stake anymore, thank God. Though with some people I wouldn't put my hand in the fire, literally. But there still exist the guardians of rigor, orthodoxy and respectable thought, the Torquemadas of philosophy. Those who watch where they step, draw a circle around themselves and declare, only mine are philosophers, the rest are pseudo-philosophers. It's the thought police, whose goal, now and always, is to stop you from thinking. Leave thinking to them, they have already completed thought, and if you step off their tracks, you are irrational, sloppy, or a charlatan. Same attitude, different church. Though maybe I should say churches, because today there are those who will persecute you for denying the gods and for affirming them, for defending certain position and for criticizing it, for saying A and for saying B, until one of the two inquisitions manages to overcome the other and diversity of thought becomes a thing of the past. Personally, I think it's far better to set aside this attitude, tempting as it may sometimes be. The options in philosophy are so broad, the open paths so numerous, that in most cases no one is less intelligent, reasonable or honest for not thinking like you or me. We are thinking together, groping in the dark, trying collectively to get closer to the truth, each navigating the terrain of ideas from our own epistemic starting point. Why can't we treat each other well on this shared journey? Moreover, none of the previous thinkers were truly silenced. On the contrary, they became role models for future generations. Oppressed thought often triumphs under the banner of revolution. We philosophers have the inconvenient flaw that the more we are told not to take a certain path, the more appealing it starts to seem. And hey, if you want the tools to enter philosophy and reach the point where you can defend without fear your own ideas, you can't miss this video over here, where I recommend 5 essential books that you cannot miss for your philosophical journey. Go ahead, click it, and above all, don't forget to think.